Hey, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of That Real Estate Tech Guy. I'm your host, Jordan Samuel Fleming, chairman of Smartphone. And today I'm joined by my good friend, Adam Whitney. Adam's not only got his own real estate investing business, Blackjack RE, but he's also the CEO of one of the biggest and best coaching groups in the US for flipping houses, Seven Figure Flipping. And this is a cracking episode for a couple of different reasons. Number one, Adam's story. I didn't know all of the story. I knew some of the story. And Adam's story itself is inspiring and interesting. And, his humility comes, I think a lot of his humility comes from the scenarios that he was in and how his life was able to, change and change so much for the better. It's a great story. I was grateful to hear it, and I think you're gonna enjoy that. Also, like the parallels between his military life and being able to build up a business on its own right, and then the journey to becoming a member, and then now the CEO of Seven Figure Flipping, which like Adam's arc is phenomenally interesting on its own. Forgetting the fact you're also going to hear some of his real focus on why seven figure flipping really can zones in on the operational side of things. So many times you hear about the sexy marketing bits and all that in communities and coaches, but Adam really kind of dials in on like this is what makes you successful. We do close out the episode with a discussion around a really cool initiative that Seven Figure Flipping has done around, for helping people to give their kids a real leg up in a very uncertain time and a very uncertain world. And they've developed a program where kids can really learn not only financial literacy but entrepreneurship and an understanding of what it takes to be able to control your life, as opposed to, for years we kind of get taught a path, school, university, job, etc. The world's changing and our kids need to be equipped for it. And I love that Seven Figures done something about it. I'm passionate about what they're doing. I thought as soon as I heard about it, I was like, yes, this is such a good idea. And I know from a smartphone perspective, we're going to be bringing that program to our community to give people an opportunity to engage if they want to do so. So this great episode. Adam's a great guy, very humble, but also incredibly accomplished. And what a story! What a guy, and what a set of companies that he's involved with. So, forget about me right now. Let's get right into my conversation with the one and only Adam Whitney from Seven Figure Flipping and Blackjack RE. And I'm here live with my friend Adam Whitney from a couple different companies. Adam, great to see you again, my man. Give everybody a little background on who you are and what you are currently doing.
Jordan, thanks so much for having me, brother. You're probably one of the most genuine elite guys in the industry. So grateful to have you in my world. I'm a real estate investor, man. I buy and sell real estate deals. I feel like I try to do a deal a day. Is kind of what we like to do over here. We have a real estate investment firm. I say firm because we don't just do wholesaling or flipping. We maximize our exit strategies. Direct to seller company, we buy from wholesalers. We'll buy off the MLS. So we just love doing real estate deals. It's just such a great wealth building tool and great active income tool that it's been a mainstay here for over a decade. I'm also the CEO of the largest house flipping mastermind in the country for the last 10 years, called Seven Figure Flipping. And we have, some of the most elite house flippers from across the country. We've got kind of two communities, the folks who are just getting off the runway, 1 to 10 deals and scaling their business to consistency. And then we've got an elite community called Seven Figure Altitude, where we have business owners in there. I say business owners because these are people with teams. These are people who are growing, scaling, running profitable P&Ls, things like that. Less for us about vanity stuff in our community. We don't really care about, I did signed this many contracts or this much revenue. We care that you are aligned with our values of service, legacy and impact. And we have a couple tools in our community where, we can help create legacy with our kids, things we're doing with our kids. And then for impact, we have nonprofits and stuff that we support because we think like the work that we do is purposeful and goes beyond profit. So obviously, profits are a prerequisite to legacy and impact. So we're just super dialed in on building profitable businesses and helping people do it. So super grateful to be here, man.
Well, I actually we're gonna close out at the end with the, you talked about legacy and particularly around the kids. So we're gonna focus a bit on that at the end because I've been really impressed with what you guys at Seven Figure Flipping are doing around that. You got a specific program of that, and Smartphone's gonna feature that program pretty soon anyway. So we'll tease that at the end. But let's the progression I'd like to do today, so that we can kind of dive into this is you then real estate, then seven figure. Because you are like in my world, I've never been in the military, and yet I know more military guys now than I thought I'd ever meet. There's a disproportionate amount of people that I work with in real estate that have been in the Marines. Like way more disproportionate than I ever thought I'd. I go from sort of like you never see you never you see a bear, and then someone mentioned there's a bear, and you see 10 of them, and you're like, what? So you obviously got into real estate, but you started out, you're in the military, you made a transition into this. Did you transition directly from the military to real estate, or was it a more a broader journey? I just don't know. I'll be honest.
Yeah, I'll tell a little bit of that story. What's interesting is, why would a Marine be good at business or have, why do you see so many Marines in the kind of entrepreneur business space? Well, Marines uniquely and innately have an ability to kind of endure adversity. And if you've been a business owner for more than like 8 minutes, you've experienced adversity. And the Marines tend to stick around because they can get up and over the hump in terms of like business to doing what it takes to get to the kind of the profitable side. But honestly, the adversity for me started when I was young. I grew up just outside of Detroit in a suburb of Detroit in the ghetto. And my mom was a crackhead and massive mental health issues. I found her dead in her apartment at 17. My dad was abusive drunk and he died during COVID. And I'd gotten into some trouble when I was 18. In fact, I was facing a kind of a fork in the road in my life. I went obviously downhill once my mom died, and I just had all kinds of like drama and trauma in my life. And then when I was 18, I got into a dispute. My ex-girlfriend, my girlfriend were going to fight, and I went into my ex-girlfriend's house, and she had a guy there, and we got into a fist fight. Didn't go well for him. I got arrested. And they wanted to charge me with home invasion and assault and battery, and that's a pretty serious crime, although a very childish thing happening between, girlfriend dispute there. And so I'm going to an arraignment, like I'm going to court to be told what my sentence is going to be. And just prior to that, a Marine recruiter approached me and said, "Hey, you interested in joining?" I said, "Sure, if you can, but I'm kind of in trouble. Can you help me?" And recruiters in the military are not allowed to go to court and get people out of trouble. That's a big no-no. So this guy actually said, "Well, I don't need you because we're doing pretty good, but the guy up in Flint, Michigan needs to make quota." Guy's name was Sergeant Watkins, and Watkins went to court, third circuit of Detroit, and went in the back room with the judge during my arraignment, and the judge came out and said, "Hey, I'm going to give you a second chance, but you have to leave and go to the Marine Corps in 2 weeks." And I went to the Marine Corps as an enlisted infantry guy in the early 2000s. Almost immediately I went on back-to-back combat deployments to Iraq. And then I just, for the first time in my life, I had been surrounded by leaders who had values. And I kind of started to get some of that negative and um, just my energy pointed in the right direction. It's the first time in my life I'd ever seen anybody with a set of values that lived it so clearly. And I kind of got addicted to being good at good things. And I did really well in the Marine Corps. They selected me to go back to college, and I went to, by the way, I graduated high school with a 1.954 GPA, which I was literally fourth from the bottom of my class. And getting in the room with these Marine leaders inspired me to be better intellectually, physically, um, everything. And I went back to college. I got commissioned as an officer. I became an intelligence officer, and I ended up doing a 20-year successful career in the Marine Corps. And about 5 or 6 years before I retired from the Marine Corps, I found this community kind of called Financial Independence Retire Early, FIRE. And I started to get obsessed with what it would look like to own my own time and my own decisions on where I spent my time. And shortly after that, I realized I needed a vehicle to build wealth faster, and I found real estate. So then I started to invest in real estate. I was buying rentals. I was lending a little bit of money I'd saved up. I invested in a syndication, and I just was completely obsessed, and then started building my direct to seller business. And by time I had retired, we were due. I mean, we were averaging 142 deals a year. So um, there's some things in that process, but at the end of the day, like the transition for me was really easy. I had purposeful work. I had a business, I had a team. We were already running. So the day I retired, I was just full time in my business. Prior to that, I was, a full time Marine and doing my business kind of on the side and just leading a team.
Wow, there is a lot in that I didn't know. And I mean, I've not known you that long. I've known you about a year or so. But that is quite a story. And the sort of fork in the road element at 18, like thinking of the Adam that could have been, that probably was odds on likely to have been actually. Like
Yeah.
the like you gotta have been at an 80-90% likelihood to go down one direction, which was not a good direction, and it was a very unlikely save to
I'll tell you, Jordan, I have 13 close friends from high school during that time in my life who have all OD'd or died. And and probably more in jail. Like that would have been my likely outcome had I not had that opportunity put in front of me.
Wow. I mean, that is a phenomenal story. I mean, it's a difficult story, but it also makes the transition, because I know where you are now. I know the team you've built. I've met the team. I've met a lot of your team. I've met a number of people, and it's the community you've built, the people I've met, the environment, the way people act, and then also the work you do with seven figure, not obviously with Blackjack and your real estate, but in seven figure. I think it makes it I think that makes the story even more compelling when I know the outcome, and I see where you are now. So when you say, uh I guess when you when I think of people transitioning into real estate now, I'm forgetting the fact that you built it, you sort of put two trains on two separate tracks, right? You built the second track that you offloaded to the real estate track while you were still in the marine track, and that meant that when that train stopped, you were able to already hop onto the other train, and it was already had the momentum. But to build a successful business in real estate, it requires a very specific, if any idiot can buy a house occasionally, but building an actual business and doing a lot of deals and keeping them profitable and sort of having that structure takes a very specific leadership and expertise. Did you find that the skills that you had because of 20 years as a commissioned officer as well, not only when you enlisted, but as commissioned officer, were those skills kind of very well suited to running the business?
Yeah, that's a great question. I wish I could take credit for any of my, perceived success, but one thing I did early on was I joined seven figure flipping as a member. Like I joined a mastermind, and a lot of the ability, uh, a lot of the real estate skill, the deficit I had needed, I got filled through a mentor. And that mentor was seven figure flipping and Bill Allen. And Bill has been, kind of an instrumental leader in my life that, has blazed the path before me going from military to real estate investor entrepreneur and allowed me to kind of, just follow in his path, and I can't take much credit for that. I just kind of find the people doing the thing that built the built the life that I want, and follow the path and just listen to what they say. I will say though that the military, first and foremost, like created a level of discipline and execution and just a skill set of leadership that translates incredibly well to business. And those things are like innate, those things are developed and they're innate inside of you. And it's a requirement to have discipline in the business world. It's a requirement to be able to show up every day. It's a requirement to build a team, to build anything meaningful. Like you don't know anybody with a scaled business that doesn't have team members that are leading. Like it's not a thing. Maybe in the future with AI, but right now you need humans. There's got to be humans in the loop. And um, so all of that, just like it all just lined up really nicely for me. And, I wish I could take much credit for any of it. But again, it's just all the influences of people and leaders in my life who have kind of pulled me up through it. And that's why I'm so passionate about seven figure flipping and helping investors build a meaningful business around impact, legacy, and service, because it's life changing, man. And it's really cool when you have somebody who's blazed the path and can help pull you up with them.
And now you're pulling people up in the
Yeah.
same way. I mean, that cycle, you say, nobody can take credit for all their success. Anybody who does is an idiot usually, or an egoist, right? Because we all like, whether it's our parents in some case, like I had a parental element that gave me examples. You got those examples from the military. But I learned my values here, you learned your values there. I learned my kind of discipline and structure here, but we all learn them from other people, and then as we grow in leaders ourselves, we pass those skills on. And I'll be honest, one of the things I love about your AI point here, one of the things I love about building like I've only ever had businesses, and what I love most about building businesses isn't really the money. Like the money's not like, not having money sucks, and like that's really bad. But I like building teams, and I like seeing, and I like when you've got someone who's got potential, and you see that person activating that potential, you see that person growing and thriving, and then you see them growing to the point where they're starting to take on leadership, and they're that to me is one of the best things to witness that you can possibly have. Like that's what makes business fun for me. It's the people, not really the outcome. And it sounds like that's sort of, you and I have that bit in common.
Yeah, I think even throughout my Marine Corps career, I found that the more successful I could make the people around me, the more successful I became. It was this awesome phenomenon where you let go of self-interest and you become interested in others and their success in a genuine way, and it really just magnifies your own success, because it creates a culture where, people care about the team, they care about winning, they know you. Like the best leaders are the ones who have people that know they care about them. Your people genuinely know that you care about them. Like what they're willing to do for you is just insane, and it will lead to a lot of success.
Yeah, when your team knows that you're always going to have their back as well, like when your team knows that leadership, that you being leader isn't just about making a decision, but it's actually sometimes it's about stepping in front of people. Like I've found in over the years, it doesn't happen a lot, but a small thing, like if I see someone rude to my team, Occasionally you'll get a customer who's frustrated and they decide to.
Or
Right, and I get that. Be frustrated, you can be annoyed, but you can never be disrespectful or, if you're effing and blinding at my team, I'm stepping in, and then you're dealing with me.
right.
And I guarantee you that like the moment they get on a call with me, because I will get on a video call with them immediately, and the moment they get on with me, their tone changes, very different. But you gotta be able, you gotta be able to know your team needs to be able to rely on you as much as you rely on your team.
Yeah, and I think that Jordan, that's why smartphone is an industry leader in what you guys do. Of course, the tech is great, and I've been a personal. We just discovered this. I've been on the platform for 5 years using smartphone. Um, but it's not just the tech; it's the team behind the tech. It's the leadership. It's the customer support. It's how you treat people. It's how far you're willing to go for even your customer base to succeed. And that, you know, when I see a successful company, it's often reflected by a caring quality leader.
I would agree with that. I agree that on all and without when you see a company that acts poorly, it will always be reflected on a leader who is unethical, who is acting in the worst possible ways. That's almost universally true. The leadership values flow throughout the company, and if you have good ones, they flow. But if you've got bad ones, they flow, and they're very easy to spot as well. How did you, just out of curiosity, I did not realize, let's pivot a little to seven figure because you obviously I did not realize that you started as a member. I did not realize that. I've only known you as the CEO of Seven Figure and as a customer of ours. So, and I don't know Bill. But when how did that happen where you were, what was the journey like to going to being a member to raising up to being the CEO?
Yeah, so I'm also one of the owners. There's multiple owners. So Seven Figure Flipping was started by a guy named Justin Williams. Bill's not even the founder, actually. Bill bought the company in 2019 from Justin. And I joined shortly after. And after a couple years in building my business, and Bill and Bill saw something in me, and I got an opportunity to invest in the business. I bought equity and became what we have a board of directors that owns part of the business. There's 7 of us total, and so I bought equity. I was just on the board, and as I was retiring, just kind of an opportunity came up to a vacancy in that seat where it's like, hey, who's gonna lead this thing into the next part of growth for Seven Figure Flipping? And I'm super grateful for the vote of confidence. They asked me if I would be willing to do that, and it just made sense as I was relinquishing my Marine Corps duties, and I said yes, I would, because I love the community, and it's been such a instrumental part of my growth and building my business from, all the successful people who've come before me. And um, I stepped into the role. I was also fortunate enough, things kind of lined up. Lindsay Arco, who's my business partner and Bill's business partner in our Blackjack company, me, Bill, and Lindsay are partners in our real estate company. And Lindsay is the COO, and she's running largely the day to day in Blackjack. So it allowed me some time freedom to be able to invest in the seven figure flipping community. So that was kind of that journey for this company.
But now, seven figure, obviously, you talked about the sort of three pillars of how you approach that. I mean, most people join communities like this because they are, I mean, much like yourself, you're looking for skills, you're looking for guidance, you're looking for a community that will support you on a journey. Um, Tell me a little bit about the sort of what you feel is a bit of the special sauce that you're able to bring to people. And how, one of the things I was really impressed when I got a chance to sit in one of your rooms at Seven Figure, and I got a chance actually to listen to Lindsay speak, which was great. She was phenomenal, and I really loved it because she talked passionately and knowledgeably about, about performance, about people's performance, and how to measure it, how to reinforce it, how to, how to make sure that not only are you training properly, but you're maintaining performance through kind of rigorous application of training and standards and KPIs and reviews and all of that. And those are things that I think so often get glossed over. People get obsessed with the numbers, the sales, the lead gen, the call, that the sexy bit that leads to numbers. But scaling a business, you can't scale on sexy numbers, because those big sexy numbers will plummet if you can't sustain the structure that's going to build, that's going to be able to do that many. I mean, I've got 60 employees for a reason. So I love that about when I was in the room at Seven Figure. What do you guys find from an education point of view, a real estate education point of view, is special about how you approach it?
Yeah, here's what's interesting about this industry. Well, first and foremost, we had the ability to focus on the things that go beyond the business, which are, like I talked about, service, legacy, and impact. Because not because the primary reason it is because we have such a massively successful track record. So people join seven figure flipping and build their community to their goal, and that's kind of a known. And the beauty of that is like, it's business is simple. It's not easy. Like, it's people, it's process, it's performance, it's like those things. We're really, really good operators in seven figure flipping. So when people come here, we help them to install an appropriate business operating system and then refine the tactics across departments. So in our industry, it's a pretty simple conveyor belt. You have marketing, you have lead management, you have acquisitions, you have transaction coordination and dispositions. And then you have HR and finance underpinning all of that. So it's like the business is the business. And we just got really good at doing the boring, repeatable stuff that drives meaningful results, which allows us to focus on the things that help to scale those results, which is the people, the process, the systems, the blueprint. Like, what is the exact way that you do this? And, over a decade plus, we've just seen hundreds and hundreds of businesses come through here, and we've been able to take the best practices of everything and then help people install that across their businesses. And it's allowed us to focus on service, legacy, and impact, because we were pretty confident, like, if you come in and install this system, you will be able to achieve your goals. Now, what's next? And I think that's, like, especially for the entrepreneurs who are successful, the what's next part is the trickiest part. Because when you stop having purpose, then things really start to fall apart. You start to not be satisfied. You start to be unhappy. And
Now, I'm sorry to interrupt this amazing conversation, but I wanted to make sure you knew that Smartphone, the only phone system built for real estate investors, connects to the best-in-class real estate investing CRMs. And because, as it's my show and I am co-founder and chairman of Smartphone, I got some great deals for you. Click the link and take advantage of 5,000 minutes free calling with Smartphone, the only phone system built for real estate investors. Click and call. Close more leads. Back to the show.
as we talked about earlier, the business is a reflection of the leader. So if the leader starts to get distracted or unhappy, or they're searching for the next thing, then the business typically won't endure. And like, we got people in our community. I think about Andy McFarland, who has been flipping over 100 houses a year since 2013, running a boring business at scale. Some years it's 300 houses, some years it's 100 houses, but he has lifestyle freedom. Guy's on 12 vacations a year because he installed a system, a simple system, not an overly complex one. He's not distracted by the newest ad on Facebook telling him he should do this strategy or that strategy. He's running the boring play over and over again, and he's ruthless in his execution, and how it's done is the way it is, and people execute. And he's done a great job developing people, and it's just like that is the game, right? And I know we want it to be more. I know we want it to be flashier. I know we want it to be the next thing, the thing we're seeing on the internet, but the business operating system, the people, the process, like all that stuff is so critical to success.
Well, and you guys have developed, and I agree 100%. I talk, because I'm obviously in the software business, which is a little different, but it's not as well. Fundamentals of business are still fundamentals of business. Like
Yeah.
whatever it is, there are fundamental things, whether it's cash flow, HR, structures, processes, software to manage, whatever it is. There is fundamentals that are still just, if you don't get them right and if you don't pay attention to them, then you are going to have a problem. You're not going to be consistent. You're not going to be able to manage scale at all. Things are going to fall apart. Um, and I think what's really interesting about your approach and how you've outlined this from particularly in the real estate community is a lot of times when I see a lot of people and they're only focusing on the sexiness, like on the marketing and the lead gen and the here's our trick for that and and there are things you can do in there, blah blah blah, and but there's also this shiny key nonsense of, oh wait, we gotta try this, oh I gotta try that. And what I really liked, and what I heard when I listened to Lindsay, what I really like about your approach is just that kind of center lined, execute this really strongly, focus on the fundamentals. I have 4 KPIs in my business that the board looks at every single week. 4. And I know, because of the way we structured our business and all that, if those 4 numbers are correct, like are they in the right shade, if they're green, or then I know they're fine. If one of them's orange or red, I know I have to zero in on that and dive into why that's true. The fundamentals are there, and I really like that approach that you've outlined there.
Yeah, and what I see in the industry is people want, and trust me, like there are tons of pivots in the real estate space. You're constantly refining things, but the fundamental stuff stays the fundamental stuff. What happens though is people quit focusing on the fundamentals. They're not operationally effective, so they start chasing the next thing, or they pivot to a different asset class or different strategy, thinking that the grass is greener. And the grass is only greener where you water it. So when you're operationally ineffective and you're trying to solve your problem by making a pivot, like it's let's get operationally effective first, and then let's refine from there. And I just like, we lose sight of that because it's the boring work and it's not exciting. And, it's like, come on, guys, you're not doing the things you're supposed to do. That's why you're not getting the result you want.
I agree 100%. And I think it's a refreshing story that sometimes just in this industry particularly doesn't get told enough, because most people most people want to focus on the sexy sides of things, but sexy don't work without that absolute ability to execute. Now let's close this out. I said at the beginning, I wanted to close this out by focusing on that part of the legacy element of seven figure, because you guys have something that I personally think is amazing. I know that smartphone, we're going to be promoting it, and promoting is the wrong word, because it's not about promoting. But I love it. I think it's so valuable, and I want to bring it to our smartphone community to give everybody an opportunity to engage with it, and that's around the kids, the next generation. Can you give us a little synopsis of that sort of how you're running that program and why you guys decided this was such an important thing to do right now?
Yeah, I'll tell you, man, we go to all these masterminds. We're in all these rooms. I see all these leaders getting better and bettering themselves. And I think about many of us, we got here because we're going away from somewhere else. It's like, where are we going away from? Well, money was taboo. Our parents didn't talk about it, especially if you didn't grow up with entrepreneur parents. And maybe your parents were broke and you kind of broke the financial chain in the family and you figured out business. But then we look at our kids and I go, are we doing enough for our kids? And again, nothing here I can take credit for. Um, we had this idea that like we need to create a space for kids to there's a gap in the school system here in the United States. Like financial literacy is kind of a secondhand thing, if it's a thing at all in most of these places. So first and foremost, a foundation in financial literacy. Then what we knew is we had to do a better job of exposing our kids to the possibilities. I'll tell you, Jordan, when I grew up in Detroit, the kind of mecca of Detroit is the auto industry, Ford, Chevy, the whole nine, right? And I remember like literally thinking the pinnacle of my life financially and job wise would be $100,000 a year job working at one of the motor companies. And if I think about that, I couldn't imagine more. Like I didn't think more there was more available to me specifically in my current situation. And I knew that like kids' mind is so malleable. What if we could expose to them to what's really possible outside the traditional path? So we launched a community internally called Teenage Tycoon, where our kids, we're a very family friendly mastermind. Like if you come to any of our member events, like whole families are there. And so we were kind of naturally doing some training for the kids and stuff like that. And then we just kind of codified it and built a kids mastermind where they're learning financial freedom. Every Thursday, they had these mentor calls. I mean, we're talking people who we would have to pay to come talk to our community will come talk to the kids at no cost because they care about pouring into that legacy in that next generation. So Russell Brunson, Donald Miller, um, just like these massively like 9-figure business owners who, um, have said yes, these kids are super important. So these kids are watching people come in and talk to them about Francis Ebola, who I know come in and is teaching the kids AI all the time. Francis's daughter is about to come give a presentation. She's a part of the community. And we just created a platform for the kids, right? It's one thing to say, if you go talk to any parent, like, oh, yeah, my kids are the most important thing to me. Are they? Because you're spending 30 grand a year on a mastermind and you're doing nothing for your kids. Like, what about your kids? Like the legacy you leave that transcends your lifespan is the kids you bring into this world. So how do we leave this place better than we got it? How do we set and every parent's dream is for your kids to have a better starting point and to do a little bit better than you. So in our world, most of the entrepreneurs are doing decent. So what's the next level for these kids? And I'm not saying like kids shouldn't go to college and go into the workforce if that's who they are. They should, and we don't tell them they shouldn't, but they should also know what else is available to them. They should understand how money works. They should understand that it's more powerful when your money works for you rather than you work for your money. Like now my son, for example, if he has tasks that he's paid for, if he's paid $10 to do something, he says, it's actually more profitable for me to pay my sister 5 to do it and me to keep 5 and I do nothing because he understands leverage. He understands interest. He just asked me, Jordan, he said, hey, he's really looking at Pokemon cards right now. He's 13 and he goes, I saw this guy, he was basically got a loan to go buy these cards that were undervalued and then resell them for more money. So he was able to arbitrage somebody else's money. Like he's 13 and he understands the concept of,
He's flipping Pokemon.
and he's like, would you be opposed to giving me a loan for this business? I'm like, of course not. So it's like, can you imagine if that was your mindset when you were 13 years old and where you might be when you're 20 or 30 because you have such a longer runway and skill development in the industry and understanding money we talk to the kids a lot about the buckets of money like spend, save, invest and give and their mindset around money is so much more healthy than even most adults. I came in one time, Jordan, and my kid's in this program, by the way, and we hired, we're on our second program director. Both of the program directors we hired came out of the school system and became entrepreneurs. So Carolina runs the program for the kids, and she has 21 years teaching in the school system. Her family is a financially free entrepreneur family. They don't work in the school system anymore. So she knows all the good and bad of both sides. And you talk about the care and the investment seven figure flipping is making in kids. It's like massive. It's massive for us. And I came in one day and my kid's at the counter with the calculator on a Teenage Tycoon call. And he's going, I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm calculating my effective tax rate. He said, do you know what that is, Dad? And I'm like, yeah, I do. Let me make sure I Google it before you start asking me questions. So it's like that is a massive leg up for these kids. And in 3 weeks, we're taking our family to the Teen Wealth Workshop, which is we do a in-person kids event, and we've developed this. How do we teach kids and get them interested? Well, we developed a game. It's called Asset Quest, and it's teaching them how to build net worth. And they have to go through a series of decisions, typical life decisions: invest in crypto, invest in gold, invest in silver, invest in index funds, invest in real estate. And at the end of the game, they get to see the result of the series of their decisions. So in the military or in sports, you go watch Tom Brady or one of these athletes that is incredibly elite, Michael Jordan. They do something called visualization. They're walking through it and making these like neural connections and decisions prior to ever executing. We did the same thing in the military. We did what we call rehearsals. Before we actually got into the fight, we rehearsed the fight over and over and over again. So by the time it was time for me to be in a high pressure situation, I'd already made that decision 100 times. And our kids are now doing that with life and money and just like smart decisions, because we're putting them in an environment to make those decisions at a young age. So when they are in the game, when they're 18 plus, they're ready to go.
Well, I think what's really important right now, or I should say, I think that's really important, particularly right now. The world is changing. The way work is going to be in the future, we have no idea actually. Like I can't tell you what jobs are going to be like in 5 to 10 years. I don't know. I have suspicions. I can see ways it could go. Some of them are good, some of them aren't. But right now, the idea of you graduate high school, you go to college, you get a job, you da da da, that game, that game's kind of played out. And
It,
so
it's not effective, because think about this, Jordan. I obviously put a lot of thought into this. If you go to engineering school, which is a good degree to get, you become an engineer, make good money, it's a technical skill, it's hard to replace. By time you graduate your fourth year, what you learned years 1 through 4 are irrelevant in the industry, because technology is moving so fast. So you just invested $20,000 to $200,000 in education, depending on where you go, and it is not prepared you to actually be an effective high-end engineer in this space. So is that a good investment? I don't know. Maybe the intangibles of having to show up and manage your schedule for sure I think are good, but like to go pay and buy a skill that's not usable in the job industry. And like I'm talking to people today, like people are getting laid off. The job market is like, when I run a job ad, like I got all kinds of good people applying. The job market is tough today.
tough. It's tough, and the truth is, right now is, I think two things are colliding, or two or three things are colliding right now. One, the education system is outdated, and I mean that with no disrespect to teachers, by the way. I mean, I think they're stuck in a shitty system. The In some ways, the education system is outdated. The economic structure we're working in is in flux right now, and it's changing. And are you going to prepare your kids to be able to adjust to any scenario? And that's to me the biggest thing, because, you know, to me, flexibility, being able to flex and move and adjust to variables is really the skill you need to achieve at this point in your life. Like people who just sort of run down, and it's like this is the thing they understand, etc. This is the only thing they can do. You're going to have struggle right now. Flexibility, being able, and flexibility means being able to think laterally and be able to absorb ideas and look at it in a different way. And I think that's what really interested me. The right now, the what we're teaching kids isn't good enough, and the world the kids are entering into is in flux. So what do we need to do? We need to give them better tools. And that's why when you and Bill sort of announced this, I immediately perked up thinking, man, I would put my kids in it today, except that my kids are in Europe and the time zone just wouldn't work.
Yeah.
And because I think you do 7 p.m. or something, and it's like, nope, that's not gonna work for me. I would have put them in day one. But what I am gonna do, as I said to you and to Carolina, is I think it's such a valuable thing to bring to the smartphone community. Just be like, look, guys, if you're investors, you know this, you know the value of what you're trying to do and build. Now here's an opportunity for you to help your kids build their future as well. And I just think it's such a valuable thing you guys are doing. I really do.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's an important mission, and it's something we in Seven Figure Flipping are investing heavily in to create a platform. Like some of the older kids in the community, they're in a book club. Can you imagine reading a book, not just a nonfiction or not just a fiction book, but like a book that's useful, that might give you a skill. And every book you read, the author actually comes on and talks to you. Like Sean Covey from The 7 Habits of a Highly Effective Teen, maybe one of the greatest books of all time, came and talked to our kids. Like Sharon Lecter, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, like who you probably know. Like
I know, sure.
they're getting enriched. It's not just learning, but it's enrichment. It's so insane. Like I can't imagine how you wouldn't want to invest in your kids in this kind of way. And it's meaningful, man. This is what it's about, is leaving your legacy.
Absolutely. Well, listen, there's a couple things just to close this out. Let's close this podcast out. We're going to obviously put all the links down into the notes and to and all of this, and the episode's going to go live inside a smartphone. But if people want to, people want to reach out, people want to get in touch with you, if people have been inspired by your journey, which, by the way, I have learned a lot more about your journey, and I find it really, really interesting and inspiring. How can people reach out to you, you both yourself and to Seven Figure?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, official Adam Whitney on Instagram. Pretty easy to find. And then just check us out at sevenfigureflipping.com.
Fantastic. Well, listen, Adam, it's always a pleasure. I'm actually going to see you live in about a week or a week and a half or so. I'm really looking forward to that. And I just really appreciate you coming on and spending some time with me and sharing your story and the successes and the value you guys are creating in Seven Figure, not just for the people and the and building businesses, but also for the next generation and helping people empower their kids. I think that's phenomenal, and I thank you for sharing that with us today.
Appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to another amazing episode of That Real Estate Tech Guy. Head over to thatrealestatetechguy.com to check out all episodes and get special discounts on tons of awesome real estate technology platforms.